Hello, good good day to you wherever you're seeing this from and whenever you're seeing this from. Um, Today is a very nice day to talk about an important topic. It's been something quite heavy on my mind, and it's actually something we all talk about, we all pray about, we all desire. Everybody desires growth. Everybody desires to be better. Everybody desires to be at a higher level, better state, you know. But one thing I've realized is the fact that not everybody is really ready to be in that spot, right? And today we're basically going to be talking about the fact that every new level demands a new version of you. I'll take that again. Every new level demands a new version of you. And so this is actually structured in a presentation form. And after this video, I would be dropping the slides on my personal YouTube channel. Pardon, I'll be dropping the slides on my personal WhatsApp channel. So the community can go through it. You could take it as a material. Learn more from it. Um, Basically, there's a question, and the question is, why is it that enlarged capacity is necessary before you enter a new phase of life? Or do you just enter a new phase of life just like that? What do you need to do? What do you need to put in place? What do you need to have to make you feel qualified, to make you feel ready for the new phase? And there's a common mistake that people make, and it comes in different forms. I mean, many people pray about things like expansion. Many people pray for expansion. Many people ask God, God, enlarge my coast. I want to be better. I want to move higher. I want to have more. They pray for new opportunities. The people pray for bigger influence. People pray for greater visibility, for people that own businesses, for people that are into content creation, for people that run maybe channels, where they put out things, that require for people to see them. They ask for visibility. Some ask for more money. Some ask for deeper relationships, right? Some ask for wider impact. Higher responsibility is also something quite a few people ask for, right? But then, do they really prepare for the internal capacity that is required to sustain those things? I mean, it's one thing to desire more, it's one thing to want more from life, it's one thing to pray to God for more, and it's another thing to be ready for the more. It's another thing to really be ready for that more. It's not enough to hope, it's not enough to pray. One very important thing is the readiness. What do you have on ground that can help you sustain what it is you're praying for? Now, there's a principle, and it's a very important principle of life. And the principle is this: every phase comes with its own weight, its own demands, and it requires its own capacity, basically. So you're looking at it from the standpoint of the fact that every phase comes with its own weight, demands, and required capacity. There is a weight you need to be able to pull when you're at certain phase. There is the demands every phase would actually throw at you. There's this sense of responsibility that you need to have for you to operate at a certain level. There is some form of capacity you need to grow into, you need to enlarge yourself into, to be able to handle some things, right? So when you're going into a new phase, you're looking at a new burden. You're looking at a new system. You know, you can't continue doing things the same way you were doing it in the previous phase. Now you are in a better phase. You are in a new phase. You should find ways to do things better, right? You're taking up new responsibilities. That's growth. That's growth. Nice. You also have to face a new version of reality. The version of reality you once had might not necessarily be the same version of reality you would have to deal with in your new phase, in your new level. So it becomes very important to take cognizance of the fact that you are not where you used to be and you can't afford to stay the way you are because now you're moving to a higher position, higher phase, a better phase, and so you need to enlarge your capacity. So I take that phrase again or that principle. The principle is this: every phase comes with its own weight, demands, and required capacity. Now you must have heard the new wine principle. I mean, it was one very popular principle that even Jesus Christ made mention of, right, while he was on earth. Um, do not pour new wine into old wineskins. That's the new wine principle. Do not pour new wine into old wineskins. It's as simple as that. Don't take new stuff and put inside old stuff. Break it down. Now, new wine expands, right? New wine expands. Now, if the container has not evolved, it will rupture under pressure. Let's bring it down to you. New wine expands. New capacity, new position, new phase. Look at it like a new wine. It expands, it grows, right? You might not necessarily know what lies ahead. If you're given a new position or if you're seeking for a higher level of impact, higher level of responsibility, you might not necessarily know the depth that you might have to go, the kind of opportunities that would expose you to, and what responsibilities would come with it. New wine expands. Now, but the container is you. You are the container. The container has to evolve. The container has to be ready. The container has to be able to handle the expansion. The container has to have that capacity to be able to withstand the pressure, right? And if the container does not expand, it will rupture. It will rupture. If the container cannot handle that stretch, it will rupture under pressure. And that's why you find a lot of people break down under certain amounts of pressure. So whether you're running an organization, you begin to face different levels of pressure. You know, you're trying to meet up certain targets, you're trying to grow, you're trying to do this and that, and the pressure begins to mount up, and then you begin to break down. Whether you work with a company, let's say you're a salesperson, you have targets, you're pushing, you're pushing, you're pushing, things are not really adding up. That's pressure. That is pressure. If you've not developed your capacity to that point where you are able to take no repeatedly and you'll still be fine, you'll find yourself breaking under pressure. A lot of people cannot handle rejection. A lot of people cannot handle um, no from people. So, you have a business you're running and you're trying to speak to some people to get them to maybe join your team, get them to invest in your business, or even get them to patronize you. And they say no. They give you, some would even polish it, give you very nice excuses and all. And you just go somewhere and begin to, oh my God, I got a no, oh my God. And you begin to break under pressure. Your capacity is not yet enlarged. That's what it means. You've not gotten to that point where the wine can expand and the vessel still holds. Transformation is on one hand, expansion is on another, right? Most people focus on outcomes. Most people focus on results and they ignore the internal structure they need to set in place to have the outcomes, to have the level or the kind of result that they need. Now, it's one thing to set targets, it's one thing to set goals, it's one thing to have um, a focus as to where you are headed, what you want to accomplish. And it's another thing to be able to identify the kind of structures you need to have set, the kind of structures you need to have in place to give you um that chance to express yourself, to give you that chance to attain those targets, reach those goals, and make those dreams come true. Your external expansion can never sustainably exceed your internal capacity. I take that again. Your external expansion can never sustainably exceed your internal capacity. Basically, put it in another way, you can't give what you don't have. You can't give more than you have. You can't do more than you have the capacity for. You can't you can't you can't do more than you are able to. Now, if your internal capacity is small, what it means is your external expansion would be affected. So your external expansion can never sustainably exceed your internal capacity. No, it won't work that way. So you have to grow. You have to make yourself grow big, so big beyond your current reality, especially when you're projecting something big, something better ahead in future. Now there's capacity and then there is opportunity. Opportunities are not sustained by desires, they are sustained by structure. So you could have the desire to do something and opportunities come to get it done. The fact that the opportunity comes, you can't get the opportunity to be sustained or to keep coming or to stay with you just because you desire it. If you do not have structures in place to keep those opportunities and to keep stuff running, you're not going to have sustainability. So you want to catch fish, you go to the river or or a lake and you go with a net. You are on a boat and you have a net with you. You launch into the lake and you catch the fish. That is you setting up structure. For as long as there is fish in that lake and you have the bait and you have every other thing, it's easier for you now to throw your net. So look at your net as structure. It's easier for you with your structure to get more opportunities and to have the opportunities sustained than when you get to that lake and an opportunity came. One fish just swam somehow, jumped up, and then you are able to catch it. What's the possibility or the probability that another fish is going to jump up like that? No. So, opportunities are basically not sustained by your desires. They don't really care. They don't care about your desires. They are sustained more by the structure you put in place. Now, before your territory expands, your internal capacity must grow, and it must grow in some areas. One, in your mind and in wisdom. So you have to grow in your mind. You have to get to certain level in your mind before you can have it in reality. Before you can step into certain opportunities, certain roles, certain positions, you have to be there first in your mind. So if you are a business person and you want to be doing millions in a month, for instance, you have to get there first in your mind. It doesn't come randomly. It doesn't fall from heaven. You don't just wake up doing millions. You have to take time to learn. You have to take time to grow. You have to take time to evolve into that. And that's why it becomes very important that you grow in your mind and you grow in wisdom, especially when you begin to look into the expansion you seek. So you grow in your mind and you grow in wisdom. Another aspect you want to grow in is in your systems and your operations. What are the structures you have in place? How do they relate with each other? What's the system like? And what is the operations, the flow like? Who does what? If you run an organization, for instance, currently I happen to run Terrains Healthcare with my team. Very, very, very amazing people. Very amazing people. Very amazing people. And we have certain, processes that we stick to. We have some operations that we run. Now we know who does what at every point in time. Somebody is responsible for something. So if at any point there's any lapse, we know who to hold accountable. So we knew we needed to step into that phase where we have structures, right? There was a way we were doing it before, just like startups. One person is responsible for X, Y, Z, A, B, C, and sometimes it gets all mumbled up that you might not really be able to tell who to hold accountable for what anymore because everybody's just all over the place. So you have to grow in your mind, grow in your wisdom, grow in your systems and your operations. You also have to get spiritually matured. Spiritual maturity is something you can't afford to play with. While a lot of people commonize the spiritual realm, the thing there is this: there's an overlap, there's an interplay between the spiritual and the physical. And most times, what you find as expression, what you find as manifestation in the physical, are things that have been settled in the spiritual, right? So whether you are a spiritual person or you are not, the spiritual realm does not care about you, does not care about your belief system. It's either you have what it takes to grow or you don't. If you grow, fine, you grow for yourself. If you don't grow, well, um, it's very important to get spiritually matured, especially if you're a Christian and you believe in God, you believe in the power of God, you believe, that you cannot afford to do life alone. You begin to walk closer with God. You begin to elevate your level of closeness with your creator, knowing fully well that he sent you here for a reason, knowing fully well that you're not just doing life randomly, you're living with purpose, right? And you can't live with you can't live a life of purpose without really knowing what the purpose is. And you can't know what the purpose is if you don't know who designed the system, right? So you need to know God. You need to have a close relationship with God. You need to have a high sense of spiritual maturity. Another aspect you need to focus on in terms of growth, internal capacity, is in patience and in discipline. Look, life will try you. Life will show you pepper. Life will throw stones at you. Life will throw you a lot of stuff. But do you have the resilience? Do you have the patience? Do you have the discipline to keep going? Sometimes you get distracted while you're working on stuff. You have a goal, you have a target, and then somehow you get distracted along the way. Personal needs come in, personal challenges. How do you stay disciplined? How do you maintain that level of focus to say, look, I'm going to commit to this. I'm going to continue working on myself. I'm going to continue working on my brand. I'm going to continue working on my business, irrespective of what any other person says, irrespective of whatever any other person does. You need to grow in that capacity of patience, of discipline. Very important. Emotionally, you need to grow as well. There's a way you react to things at some point that when you get to certain level, you can't afford to react to things that way. So people might say something sometimes and it really gets to you and you just want to flare up. You just want to bust it out and ah But man, you get to a point in life when people will do way more, way, way, way more. And you look at yourself and be like, ah, no, no, I can't afford to react to this because you've grown in your mind, you've grown in your emotional depth. You can take more, you can handle more, you can take more hits without reacting. It's very important that you grow in that regard. Another thing, very important aspect of growth in terms of capacity enlargement is in strategic thinking. Look, it's one thing to think, it's another thing to think strategically. Um, Sometimes I view life like a game of chess, and every move counts, every move matters. It's either it goes in your favor or not. We make some decisions in life, some really, really stupid decisions in life that in the moment we feel good, in the moment we feel like we're doing well. But in the long run, we'll find out that we've shot ourselves in the foot. You need to become strategic in your thinking. It's not enough to wake up in the middle of the night and begin to think. It's not enough to wake up in the middle of the night and begin to worry about your business, to worry about your finances, to worry about your relationship, to worry about how to meet up, with stuff and all. No, it's better to think strategically. Begin to think of actual things you can do. How would those stuff play out? How would those stuff in aggregate, you know, push you steps ahead in life? Strategic thinking, grow in it. Now, structure is the container that holds the weight of your success. Yeah, the structure you have, the structure you've placed on ground and you're working with is that container that holds the weight of your success. It's the structure you have that's going to decide or determine whether or not your success is going to have much weight. So, if you want more weight, put better structures on ground. Now, there's a season of preparation for everybody, moving from one phase to another. As you intend to transit, from one phase in life to another, there is a season of preparation. Yeah. And the thing there is, God Himself is often committed to preparing the vessel than releasing the opportunity. Yeah. God is more committed to preparing the vessel than releasing the opportunity. Take, take a look at that for a moment. God is more committed to preparing the vessel than He is to releasing the opportunity. And sometimes you find yourself praying for stuff. God, I need this, I need that, I need this, and it's not coming. But what you begin to experience is you're learning stuff, you're being put through stuff, and you find out that over time you look back and say, wow, I never knew I was going through a process. Wow, I never knew I was learning stuff because now you've grown, you've gone through that refiner's fire, and now you have, in retrospect, you begin to see that all the while you were waiting for the opportunity to come, God was actually preparing you. So He's not going to hand stuff to your hand if you are not ready for it. He's not going to be confident enough to give you some responsibilities if you don't have the capacity for it. And what it does is it takes time to build you, mold you, to prepare you, you know, as a vessel than pushing those opportunities high because he knows that when he has prepared you enough, when those opportunities begin to come, you will be able to make the most from them. Now, one painful thing that a lot of people do not want to accept is the fact that enlargement comes with stretch. It requires stretching. Yeah, yeah. Enlargement requires stretching. Just for someone who goes to the gym, you're trying to work on a muscle, you'll feel the pain. Man, you'll feel the pain. Enlargement doesn't come just like that. It comes with some bit of stretching. Stretching is uncomfortable, but it is necessary for growth. So if you want to grow into certain capacities, you need to get yourself ready to go through the uncomfortable process, right? If you need to start waking up, if you're the type that wakes up by 9 a.m., you run a business and you're waking up by 9 a.m. and you wake up by 9 a.m., find stuff to do, scroll on social media, you eat by 12, and then you start attending to your business by 1, and then you're wondering why life seems to be unfair to you, why your competitors are doing more, making more than you. Then you really need to now begin to find how to wake up earlier, right? I read a book, The 5 a.m. Club. It's an interesting book. It's an interesting book. It talks about getting up early, putting things in place, making preparations in life, not waiting for chance and all. Now, for someone who is used to waking up by 9 a.m. and now you want to start waking up by 5, do you think it's going to be easy? Of course, it's going to be uncomfortable, right? But that's uncomfortable stretching, of yourself is something that is really necessary for your own growth. Now, there's another important thing that is the capacity development. Yeah, we talk about personal development all the time. But when you look at preparation, you see preparation not as punishment because it's not. Preparation basically is a construction of your internal structure, right? You're building an internal structure right within you, and you need to prepare. So the time of preparation, that's why I call it the season of preparation. That time you're preparing is that time to build the internal structure. And it's not punishment. Some people get some form of delay in quote for years. Some get delayed in life. They get some seem to be stagnant in life for years. Their mates are ahead of them in other aspects, in life. But then they are just there on one spot, going through that process, going through that process, going through that process. They are going through that preparation. And once they are done with that preparation season, boom, they get launched in life. That is how it works. For some, it's that way. For others, it might not necessarily be. We all have our unique experiences in life, and that's why you can't judge your experience or assume your experience is going to turn out to be like that of some other person because in God's design, you have your own time and your time has nothing to do with some other person's time. The only thing that matters is what time is it with God, right? And God is not constrained by time anyway. He lives outside time. So the timing for you might not really matter to him. You just need to trust him enough and keep going through that process of developing yourself, getting yourself ready for the opportunities. Um, if we take a look at, an historical precedent, right? Not just one. Let's look at King David, for instance. King David, it was anointed to become king, but in spite of the anointing, David went through a lot. He went through a lot. He went through a lot. There were times he could have been killed, right? There were times he went through a lot. It was a long process for him, but eventually he got to become king. Joseph, you know, he dreamed. He had this beautiful dream or dreams, right? But from the dream, Joseph was cast into a well. He was sold into slavery. He went to prison. His eyes saw shege. He saw a lot. He saw Pepe. Life showed Joseph Pepe. But in the end, he became prime minister in Egypt, right? These are people that have gone through their own seasons of preparation, right? Even Jesus Christ fasted for 40 days and 40 nights. But before then, he went through that early stages, to prepare to you will find Jesus even at 12 going to the temple, lost in the temple in court, and he learned a lot. He learned a lot. He prepared himself, and when it was time, he still prepared himself more, committed himself to fasting. He was tempted by the devil and all. So you don't just appear without preparation. Preparation gets you ready for appearance. The limelight is not a light that makes you better. It's a light that reveals your level of preparation. The limelight reveals to the world how ready you were for this stage, right? So that's why you need to give yourself to preparation. Um, for someone who has a career, you're working, and for someone who is in leadership, there are I actually have some messages for you. So, the habits basically that can help you survive one level may become the reason you fail at another. Mm, the habits that you used that actually helped you survive in this particular level, if you get to the next level, there might be the reason why you fail. And it's the truth because growth requires becoming a larger person internally. Yeah, growth requires you to expand, to be better internally. You need to be better. You need to be ready for more. Now, if you look at people management, for instance, you begin to move from individual brilliance to team synergy, right? So if you want to manage people, instead of looking at individual brilliance, or you look at this person and say, oh, this person is smart, this person is brilliant, this person has nice ideas, you now begin to look at, okay, can this person work with a team? Does this person have, this team spirit in them? And then team synergy begins to be more important to you than the brilliance of an individual. That is another level of growth. When you're looking at decision making, for instance, you begin to see that handling the weight of high stakes um, choices begins to become very, very, very important, and it becomes something you need to do with care. Now you're faced with certain decisions that no one else can make for you. You have to make those decisions. You have to make those choices. You're not going to leave those choices for people. You are a leader. You are building your career, right? You can't leave some decisions to people to make for you. There are some decisions that your team will be looking at. There are days when I've had to make tough decisions at Terrain Healthcare, and I would basically see my team members, you know, just they're looking up to me to see what the CEO would do. Some of them, I mean, we have very, very brilliant people on my team, very amazing people. They have quite intelligent, and they're looking at me and say, okay, what would he do? And I can't afford to be less. I can't afford to make um, wrong decisions that I won't be able to live with. So yeah, I'm not perfect, And that doesn't mean I want to be complacent. That doesn't mean I want to be okay with. No, I'm not a mediocre, and neither should anybody, right? The fact that you're not perfect, you're looking at it from the standpoint that, oh, you're not God. But even God says, be perfect, right? So if God has given the instruction, be perfect, what it means is we owe it to ourselves to consistently work on ourselves to be better. You owe it to you to be a better version of yourself today than you were yesterday. And if you look at strategic thinking, you begin to focus on the long term systems and the outcomes rather than the immediate things, what you see in the moment. Now, I interact with some people and I find the way they reason, the way they think, and I see them talking from the standpoint of now. What can we get now? How can this affect me now? If I do this, what will it yield now? No, there is more to life than now. How about tomorrow? Tomorrow will take care of itself. Oh, really? Tomorrow responds to what we saw today. Tomorrow is when you reap what you sow today. So it becomes very important to begin to think strategically, to begin to think long term, as you grow in career, as you grow in leadership. When you make decisions for your team, you make decisions that would affect the team positively in the long term, right? And then you need to become emotionally stable as well, right? You're building your career, you're moving up the leadership ladder, your emotional stability becomes paramount, right? You can't remain grounded under increased pressure because the pressure is only going to increase. To whom much is given, much more is expected, right? So the pressure doesn't get easier with the height you attain. No, the higher you go, the hotter it becomes in leadership. Yeah, the hotter it becomes, the more people look up to you, the more the weight of responsibility on you, the more the need for personal development. Right now, technical skills will get you hired, right? But leadership and systems thinking would actually sustain growth. What you can do will get an organization to hire you, will get a team to want to recruit you. But your leadership and your systems thinking, you begin to think beyond yourself. You begin to think about automation, you begin to think of how can we make this thing better? How can we make this thing faster? What are the systems I can put in place that even when I'm not here, this task, this responsibility does not get lost in the crowd. Let's put it that way. How do I ensure sustainability, right? And that is what will keep you growing. There's also the business and the systems. Right? We've talked about the career, we've talked about the leadership. If you look at it from the standpoint of business and systems, you really get to understand that scaling does not only multiply revenue, it also multiplies problems. Yeah, scaling does not only multiply revenue, it also multiplies problems. And if you're doing something in a certain way and you're attending to just five clients or five customers, by the time you move up and say, look, I want to start attending to 50 customers, then you begin to realize some things you never really paid attention to before. Some things you did not really consider to be important. But now, the fact that you're attending to more people reveals it that look, you've not gotten this aspect fixed. So scaling does not just increase your revenue or multiply your revenue. One thing scaling does also is to multiply your problems. So you have to put systems in place to check that whatever comes up as a result of my scale as a result of my growth in my business, I don't leave rooms for those problems to be expressed or left unsolved. So you have to become proactive, right? Because growth exposes weak structures. So if your structure is weak, growth will expose it. For instance, if you run a business and you have a customer service team, and your customer service team are very slow to respond to people, but you might not really realize that because you only get one person reaching out per week. If only one person reaches out in a week, you might not really feel it. But what happens when you have 150 people reaching out in a day, and then you begin to see that, oh wow, we have so much lag. Then you need to tighten, that process, get more people, put some structures in place so that they can perform their job, um, you know, easily. Now, small businesses survive on improvising, shall I say, improvisation, right? It's easy to just improvise. Oh, okay, yeah, this will go for now. Let's just get this one and let's get it to work. But larger businesses require systems. Larger organizations cannot operate on improvising or improvisations. No, you can't use that model to run a large organization, basically. Operational pressure also grows, with communication complexity, because the higher your organization grows, the more people you have to deal with. So if in a team of 12 or 13, like in the case of Terrains Healthcare, we have the primary team, and then we also have like an extended team, right? We have people in the core team, as Terrains Healthcare team members, and we also have some other people who work with Terrains Healthcare, but not necessarily as team members, right? The healthcare professionals are there. We have some sourcing agents, some delivery agents, and also it's a very broad organization. But the people personally I have to deal with, I have to relate with, are just maybe 12 right now. But what happens when the team itself grows to become 1,000, 5,000, 50,000? At that point, there is complexity. At that point, there is communication complexity, and there is need for more. But don't want to wait till we get to that point before I begin to put structures in place to get that solved. Now, if you're a founder, if you have an organization that God has laid it on your mind to start, it's important for you to know that a founder without delegation becomes the bottleneck of their own organization. I know it's hard. It's hard. I have this vision. This is how I imagine it. This is how I think it should be done. And so I can't afford for someone else to do it in a way that does not really make sense. It has to make sense. You have to get it right. And to get it right, I'm the only person that can get it right. Oga, you will slow your organization down. You'll be the bottleneck of your own company. And it's quite important to know this because you need to delegate. If you're a founder or a leader, you need to be able to assign tasks. You need to be able to shed some responsibilities amongst your team. Not only does it give you that breathing space, it also helps build your team. It also helps increase the capacity of your team members, because if you give you them if you give them a task to accomplish or an assignment and they do not know how to do it, they have to learn. They have to research. They learn on the job. Yes, they'll make mistakes, but they'll do it better next time. And next time when you ask them to do it, they'll do it better, do it faster. So it's important as a founder, as a leader, um, to delegate. Very important. And I want you to know something. Before you pray for expansion, first build the capacity to manage it. Before you pray for expansion, it's important to first build the capacity to manage it. If expansion comes and you don't have the capacity for it, you put yourself in trouble. Now, when it comes to relationships and family, love alone is not enough. Yeah, love is not enough. Relationships are sustained by capacity. A lot of people might not look at it from this perspective, but this is the terrain's perspective anyway. Relationships are sustained by capacity, and by capacity, I'm talking about patience. You have to build your capacity in patience. You have to build your capacity in sacrifice. How much can you sacrifice for someone you love? You have to build your capacity in emotional maturity, in communication. How do you communicate? Whether it's in giving out the communication or the message or in receiving the message, how you need to increase your capacity in that regard, in your own stability as well. So, mental stability, you need to enlarge your capacity. You need to grow. How stable are you? Are you the type that has mood swings every 30 minutes? So someone says something right now, your loved one says something right now, whether it's your spouse or your siblings, your family members, or and they say something right now and you flare up. And later you'll be like, "Ah, I'm so sorry. I don't know what came over me. I was just going through it. I just had a moment. I was just going through some stuff. No, you have to work on stability. You have to work on getting yourself in that zone of stability. It's very important. And how about conflict management? Yoruba people say the tongue and the teeth will always fight. And it's true. There'll definitely be times when you would have opposing ideas, you'd have conflicting interests. You know, there'll be conflict sometimes, but how do you manage it? You get offended by your partner. How do you manage it? It's very important, to have that sense of conflict management. Now, um, new wine cannot thrive inside damaged emotional containers. A family is only as healthy as the internal capacity of the people building it. Did you get that? Did you? I'll take it again. New wine cannot thrive inside damaged emotional containers. A family is only as healthy as the internal capacity of the people building it. So if you have a husband and you have a wife, they are the people building the family, right? They just, I mean, and let's even say you've not even gotten married yet. You're still dating. You're still in relationship, and your internal capacity is really, really nice. What it means is your relationship will be healthy because now you can do stuff that you need to do to say that your relationship works out. What if your internal capacity is a mess? Then your relationship is in trouble. Personal development, the importance of personal development cannot be overemphasized. No, it cannot. It cannot. The version of you that got here may not necessarily be the version required for where you are going. Yes, you have tried. You have tried, you've persevered, you've pushed yourself, you've gotten to this point. But this version of you that got to this point is not the version of you that may necessarily move, to the next. The the children of Israel, the generation that left Egypt, they were not really the generation that got to Canaan, right? Yeah, only Joshua and Caleb made it. Growth often feels like identity disruption because it requires a lot. right? When you're growing, there are a lot of things you did not used to do, but now you start doing it. And people are looking at you, they're like, okay, since when did you start? If you're the type that doesn't read books, and then you pick up a book and start reading, and someone sees you and is like, you are reading, you know s- e- growth has this way of making you look like someone else, right? Because it requires you to unlearn a lot of stuff and to restructure your life around the new knowledge you learn. It requires you to have new routines and have some even deeper sense of discipline, because you know that you have to do more to get more, right? You have to do more in terms of your discipline, your commitment to get to this new height you really want to get to. And there's another important thing, which is self awareness. Self awareness as you grow has to increase. You have to be more self aware. You have to know when to change stuff. If you are doing something in a particular way and it's not working, awareness helps you realize on time that, look, this thing is not working. Let's try something else. That's growth. And of course, you need to evolve beyond emotional patterns, right? Because at some point, the container itself must change. At some point, the container itself must change. Even you, at some point, have to change. The version of you that did well 5 years ago, last year, need to do better this year, and so that version of you might need an upgrade. You might need to have an update in your system. Yeah. So, but then when you are unprepared, there are some dangers attached to it. There are some dangers attached to unpreparedness. One is opportunities become stress, right? Opportunities that you'd ideally be praying for, when they now come, become stress, right? And become stressful. So you see opportunities as a stress. When they say, oh, there's an opportunity in this, let's do this. Oh, no, I can't go through this anymore because you are not prepared, right? Every opportunity that comes becomes to look like a stress, becomes to look like stress to you. Relationships also become pressure. Your influence becomes anxiety, right? Because now you are worried that, oh, what will people think about me? What will people say about me? Now people are looking at me. I can't deal with it. I can't handle it. Influence becomes anxiety. Leadership becomes chaos. I mean, yeah, wealth becomes destruction. Now you have the money, you have the wealth, and you really are not prepared, so you don't know what to do with it. And then you begin to do stuff to destroy yourself. Nah. Now, the issue basically is never the opportunity per se. The issue is the insufficient internal structure, right? The opportunity itself is not the challenge, it's not the issue, but the fact that you've not put in some internal structure in place, that is the problem. So you are not able to handle those stuff. And finally, I'll basically wrap up with, before you pray for bigger opportunities, right? You need to ask yourself this very important question: have I become the kind of person who can sustain what I am asking for? Have I? Have I become that kind of person that can really sustain this thing I'm asking for? If I'm praying to God for a partner, in terms of relationship, marriage, and all, begin to ask yourself, have I really developed myself to that point where I can sustain a relationship? If you're praying to God for a form of expansion in your business, have you, now you're praying to God for God to increase your business to a point where you begin to do transaction worth millions every day, but your account is still a personal account, and even the personal account is still at tier one. The largest amount of money you can get at a time, maybe for some banks, is 100,000 naira for tier one. And the transaction you can make in a day, I don't know, is it 30,000 naira or 3,000 naira? So you've not even prepared yourself. You don't even have a business account, and you've not to even talk of upgrading the business account to tier three. So how do you now begin to pray for God to bring a client that will pay you 1 million naira when your account can only take 100,000 naira at a time? So before you begin to ask for bigger opportunities, like I said, ask yourself, have you really become the kind of person that can sustain what you're asking for? It's very important because um, life is learned backwards, not forward. You learn life from experiences, either your own experiences or the experiences of other people. And the smartest way to learn in life is to learn from the experiences of others. That way, you avoid the mistakes other people have made, and then you do better than they did. This is how we think here at Terrains, and this is how I think. This is how we think in this community, because this is how we build. This is how we build, and this is the Terrains way. Until I see you at the next video, have a very good time, and don't stop preparing, don't stop learning, don't stop working on yourself, don't stop making progress. Bye.